it?
Oh, there it is.
There was a second one, yeah, closed. Yeah.
My clock says half a minute too.
Mine says
Yeah,
5:59.
they got it on mate.
I haven't got the seconds going.
I had a couple of notes, but not matter.
Excuse me, could we have that air thing turned down, please? Is that possible?
Yeah, you can turn it off now if you like.
Go. 6 o'clock.
I'll open the meeting. Thank you all for coming tonight. The first meeting is the annual meeting, and so we're dealing with the annual meeting for a start, and then we'll start our monthly meeting as soon as that is finalised. So attendance, there's no leave of absence here. Are there any apologies for the meeting? No apologies? Okay, confirmation of minutes of the meeting on the 19th of December 2021. Is somebody prepared to move that?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Blizzard, seconded. Deputy Mayor. Any queries on the minutes? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We now have the annual report. The annual report has been circulated and can be got on the online. Again, this year has been an interesting year, but thankfully, after COVID, that causes a few issues, and we still did have some in the last 12 months, but they're finally sorting themselves out, and so thankfully we are now getting back on track, and life's much easier than what it was. Of course, it's my last meeting. I want to thank everybody for their support over this last 12 months and the last few years as well, including our staff, and I wish you all the best in the future. That's all I have to... When do you want to make any comments?
Since I was only here for half the year, I think probably
Yes.
I'll defer to that.
Thank you. We'll hand over to Rachel just to talk about the financials.
Thank you, Mr.
Anything
Mayor.
else she wants to mention?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'll just be very brief compared to previous years, but in terms of the financial performance of the council, ended up around $400,000 better off than budget last year. So we've obviously had some deficits in about the last probably 3 years that we've been working really hard trying to reduce those each year. So we're down to around $90,000 loss this last financial year, which was fantastic. There's a lot of stuff wound up in that though, in terms of positions that haven't been filled and things like that. So even with the next budget, probably won't be as low as that. So still between sort of that, balanced budget of $0 and $500,000. So in terms of the variances in the financial statements, we had, which there actually wasn't a lot, which is good. So looking through all the categories in the financial statements, statutory fees and fines was a larger increase due to one large development application received. In terms of grants, our cash balance and our grants are probably overstated for the year by about 1.4 million because the federal government decided to pay the financial assistance grants in advance. So instead of just 1 quarter, that actually paid a half year in advance. So that was 1.4 million. So it sort of overstates where you're at. And also the interest due to the low interest rates that were being paid last financial year. Obviously that's on the change at the moment, but yeah, that was quite well below budget. So overall, really good net result for the council financially. and that's in line with the long-term financial plan that Council had set in 2018-19. It's very much in line with that, which is pleasing. So I'll present that for Council's consideration, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. We now need a motion to accept the annual report. Is somebody prepared to move that?
Yep.
Moved. Thanks, Councillor Rolday, and seconded Councillor Poposky. Any discussion required? Councillor Poposky.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I just listened to the pleasing result from the Financial Officer. One of the things I noticed in reading through the annual report, we had 207 major projects listed under the directorates. I noticed in the figures there that we completed 116 of these, which is 56%, which leaves us with 44% of either not started or incomplete. And there may be someone from the and say why is that a larger number than normal that we haven't completed the major projects within the directory? That's an interesting question. But my question is to the finances, those projects that are still listed as incomplete or not started, they would have been costed. Does that money go forward into the next year budget, or we may, the next council may well choose to take them off the priority list? So how does that work with uncompleted projects that we listed we would do? It was an enormous workload, and I understand that, but going forward, how does that affect us?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Poposky, we do carry those forward to the next financial year. There may have been, and I'm not sure about this last year because I obviously wasn't here, but the year before there was discussions at the time with the carry forwards about whether they were still relevant or not, or whether the council of the day wanted to move them onto that sum onto a different project. So there is a set of, I suppose, for 22-23 financial year, a set of new projects based purely on renewals, and then carry forward projects from the previous year. So they're funded, ready to be delivered. If we find that, in the market at the moment that there's various external factors that affect the pricing on those, so once, say if it's like a larger project that involves infrastructure with it, then the materials and things like that go into that may have changed a lot. So once final costings and stuff are done for that, and if it varies from budget, then that will come back to the elected members for another decision, or a budget amendment as time goes by. So when that's ready to be done.
Would you find that carryover is a high number than normal, like 44% uncompleted?
Yeah, look, it probably was. We've had, and as everyone would be aware, we've had a few years here where a lot of projects have been on the go, and they probably haven't been resourced as well. Because you can put money in to do a project, but you've actually got to have the staff to be able to do that. We've had a little bit of turnover of staff as well too in the last couple of years, so that's probably impacted on that. Also, we've been running around with COVID. So that has had a major impact on the organisation in terms of the ability to deliver projects as well too. So it's just it's a big storm. Really.
Thank you for the explanation.
Anything further?
Mr Mayor, I just had a question referring to page 51 of the report. In there's a settlement strategy earmarked for this current financial year. My question is, when will this commence?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll take that one. The settlement strategy commenced in July, and unfortunately we've since lost the consultant, so we are having to seek another consultant. So the strategy, in a sense, is half done because the previous strategic planner that we lost had started that a couple of years ago. So there's a body of data and a body of work there, but it needs to be updated. There needs to be community engagement about it. And because we are under-resourced in that area, we've had to seek consultancy, and unfortunately we've been unlucky with that.
Thank you. Councillor Rattler.
I just want to note that the auditor said that they're reviewing the long-term financial management plan to get the operating surplus ratio back to positive. I wondered if you saw any concerns with that or if there's anything.
No, through you, Mr Mayor, as I said before in the finance section, that's the plan of the council in terms of reducing that deficit over, I suppose, the life of the 10-year plan. We were looking about a 5 to 6 year turnaround, going from a deficit of about 1.5 million down to a balanced budget of 0, and yeah, basically on target to meet that. So, and this is happening statewide as well too, so they will be checking against. The legislation at the moment says that, you know, you need to have a plan, but actually whether your annual plan is set off that plan or not is not a requirement. So that's where they're actually starting to marry the two together and actually making sure that what you're doing in practice is actually what you're doing strategically. So.
No further debate or questions? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. There was no submissions received this year. Are there any questions from anybody on the annual meeting? If not, I will close the meeting. And now I'll officially open the monthly meeting. I'll welcome those present in attendance and advise that the meeting will be recorded in accordance with council policy titled Electronic Recording of Council Meeting Policies, Meetings of Council, to assist in the preparation of minutes and ensure a true and accurate account of debate and discussion at meetings is available. We'll now have prayers, and prayers tonight will be by Matthew. That's why Matthew came tonight, so he can do prayers for us. No, I was only joking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Dear Lord, we come tonight and Lord, I just want to pray and your blessing on this community. I also want to pray for blessing on these councillors who have served this community these past at least 4 years, but for many more years. And Lord, we thank you for them, and we thank you for their service to our community, for their willingness to represent our community and to put in the time to seek what's best for our community. And as many choose to end their time, Lord, we pray that you just bless them in their time finishing up here, and that just they would see the fruits of their labour and the rewards in years to come, with plans and strategies that get put in place and that help this community to grow and flourish. And Lord, we too think of the upcoming elections. We thank you for those people in our community who've decided to put their hand up for consideration for election as councillors. We pray, Lord, a blessing on each and every one of those people who have taken that stand to put themselves forward for community's consideration. And we pray for those elections and for all the things that to happen from that your blessings would flow through that, and that those elected would soon gel and would be able to see a united vision for this community and for what's ahead. We know, Lord, we live in a world that there's many challenges at the moment, and we pray and ask for your blessing on this community, your continued blessing on this community, and we thank you. And we pray, as you taught us to pray, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thanks, Matthew. We'll now go down to attendance, and we're all here, so there's nobody away. I'll go down for issues raised by, confirmation of minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of September. You moving those, Tony?
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Second it?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Waposki, any queries on the minutes? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Issues raised
Mr.
by...
Mayor, just before you go, before you get into trouble, you have missed the acknowledgement of country.
Oh, I did too, sorry.
Yep. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's supposed to have been first. I am so sorry. Acknowledgement of country. The Circle Head Council acknowledges the Northwest Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of country on which we stand, meet and play. We recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. And I am very sorry about that. We'll now go to... what number are we? 3, issues raised by council. Oars, 3-1-0. 3-3-0. Questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it is my last meeting here tonight, which will be close to 13 years, is it okay if I have 13 questions? No, I've only got one. Thank you. My concern is the Tarkine adventure. There was $12 million promised by the last federal government. I haven't heard anything. Maybe you people have. And I'm just wondering, if we haven't heard anything, would council write a letter? We've already had one tourist season finished, coming into another one, and still nothing has been done as far as I know. Maybe, if you haven't, would it be possible that council write a letter to whoever so we can get some answers? Thank you.
Yep, well, the answer is that we don't know, and nobody knows yet because the budget's not going to happen until next week or the week after. And it is in their plan for, we don't know whether it's going to be this year, next year, or whether this is going to be done over a couple of years. But until the budget is finalised, which is another week or two, nobody knows, so we'll need to leave it till after that. What I have been told is that it's not going to be in the ownership of Parks and Wildlife now. It's going to be under the DPAC, the Department of Premier and Cabinet, rather than State Growth or Parks and Wildlife. So I think that that's a good thing because that means that it comes under the Premier's jurisdiction of the state. So the money will be given to the federal government, to the state government through DPAC, and then there's obviously work being done on what's going to happen when, but until the budget is finalised and we know what year's money is going to come through, nobody knows. So a letter wouldn't be appropriate until after that's done. I would expect that it'll be early next year before that scoping work is going to be done, so that anybody knows. So that's where we're up to.
Thank you.
Unless you've got further advice.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, all I know on top of that is that it is actively in the budget review process.
Thanks very much for that.
Councillor Posse, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. I won't have the 13 of Councillor Woodward, but I've got 4 or 5. First one, a pretty simple questions. Plus you've got to earn your last dollars. Will the recently advertised tender for the maintenance of Greenpoint Park be held over until the OSA report's reviewed?
I couldn't tell you that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it's not the intention to hold it over because we need the maintenance to be carried out during the summer season, and the review of the open space and recreation strategy is not going to happen until early in the new term of the council, depending on the new council's priorities.
Good, thank you. Has there been any recent contact with the State Government Department to clean up and paint the Duck River Bridge in Davey Street, Smithton? It's a terrible mess that has been raised many times in 4 years.
They did some work on it last year, but they didn't clean it on it.
I'd have to take that on notice, I'm
Yeah, I
afraid, we
would have
don't know.
thought so.
Has council received any acknowledgement from Parks or the Minister, read the motion, and about asking that blocks be released at Arthur River? Have you had any correspondence or reply?
No, I did talk about it at the last Arthur Pine Management Committee, and it was news to Nick Decker. He hadn't, but he said that'd go to the minister rather than to him. But no, he hadn't heard a thing. So obviously, the minister hasn't got back to people on the ground to discuss it at this point in time.
So they haven't even acknowledged the
Yes.
letter that was sent forward?
Oh, that would probably.
They did acknowledge the letter, yes.
Thank you. Some time ago, Councillor Sarah's raised that we should contact Parks with the possibility of buying peppercorn, Bryant Park. Have we had any correspondence from Parks about this?
Not that I'm aware of, I'll have to take that one on notice. Which park was it?
Right.
Bryant Park, no, it's been in the mountain park. It was triggered by a mountain bike track for Circle Head. That's what triggered it. And Councillor Sarah's come up with a solution that the state would have satisfied us, and Parks want to release land they don't use anyway. So that's where it was triggered. My last question, Mr Mayor, I can't make a statement, but I'll make a question. That would you accept the appreciation that myself and I would imagine the rest of the councillors into your service to local government over the period of time?
Yeah.
Thanks for a job well done.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Rice-Harris.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've only just got one. Several months ago, we passed at this council table a scenic protection overlay, or going into the planning scheme or code into the near future. It was discussed around consultation with private landholders, and before this actually was to go further. My question relates to when this consultation will commence. Seeking clarification for a few around that time frame. Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Ashley is we're actively working on that, but unfortunately it's been delayed due to staff shortages in the planning team. So we're now looking for a consultant to support us in that to get it done. So it definitely will happen before anything further goes on with the scenic protection management overlay.
Thank you.
Councillor Redland.
I just wanted to ask if there was an update from the Cradle Coast on any region.
You, Mr Mayor, no, it hasn't.
Any further questions? Not. We'll move on. Declaration of pecuniary interests 4142. Are there any?
Yes, Mr Mayor, enclosed 18.3.
18.3.
Non-pecuniary.
Thank you.
Good.
So, Mr Mayor, 18.3 non-pecuniary. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing further? I now need a resolution for agenda items 5, 6, 7. Is somebody prepared to move those?
So moved.
Thank you. Councillor Redland, Deputy Mayor second. No discussion. I don't think we'll do those individually. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 5, which is workshops. We had 2 of those. Expect any questions on those? None?
Mr Mayor, I just had one question. It was actually quite ironic. There's a fire truck went past just then. It was relating to the fire station update and whether we could, the General Manager just could, in the public realm, what she can disclose just as far as the timeline with that, because I know there's some anxious people in the park in which I live, and I just think communication's important. Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I've been in contact this week with the chairman of the Western Area Management Committee. I can't give you a precise timeline. The matter is with the State Department, and they are going through their compulsory acquisition process. I understand that's quite a complicated process, and it has several stages. We stand ready to do whatever we are needed to do, but at the moment the process is with them. Council, we've taken the resolution, and there have been ongoing discussions that we're waiting to hear further.
Nothing further? Move on to Mayor's appointments. Are there any questions on any of those?
One.
Yeah.
So this is your last appointment. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for all you've done for this community, but also what you've done through the gap and Alga. There's a lot more that goes on that people don't realise what you've done, so I just want to thank you on behalf of this council regarding that.
Thank you. Anything?
Right.
Councillor Hine.
Yes, just could you give us an update of the after employment meeting that you attended? Is there anything controversial come up with that, or any?
No, not really. Trying to think of that last meeting. No, there's nothing other than what we normally discuss on the monthly basis. They're still looking at the 10 million that was promised, and we're working through that. There's now a project officer looking at the issues with that. There are not all the money is going to be spent in the APCO, because some of it's going to go into down the West Coast as well, and so we're working with the West Coast Council with that, and David Mitson has been online the last couple of meetings discussing some of the tracks down at Climbage Track and a couple of others down there that is also going to have some work doing to it. So early in next year there will be some work being started on some of those projects that's going to happen, and the edge of the world is going to be looked at the same project, even though that the 10 million is not going to, that's not part of the $10 million. That's a separate budget item that's going to be looked at, but there's going to be some significant upgrading of the edge of the world, which is becoming more and more popular, and things like the buses turning around at at that point is very difficult, possible, and so a lot of those things are going to be streamlined so that it makes it more user-friendly.
Supplementary question on the same subject, and there's been a breakdown of funds. If you're talking about splitting some up with the West Coast, of what percentage of the 10 million is still allocated to each particular municipality or area?
No, there was never 10 million for each municipality.
No,
it was
what
10 million.
Percentage of that 10 million has been allocated to say the West Coast Council?
I don't know at this point in time. Once we get further down the track with the issues that's going to needs to be fixed, we'll know better. But it was always, the 10 million was for both councils, not just for our area, and so that's nothing new, but I can't give you a breakdown on what's what at this point in time. Councillor Woodward.
Mr Mayor, what was the outcome of the Barcoo Road meeting?
That was Circlehead Farms talking about power down on Barcoo. They're looking at putting another 4 farms along the Barcoo Road. The farms are presently in plantation. That plantation is going to be harvested starting early next year. So it'll be about a 4-year project, 1 dairy per year, but they're struggling to get the state government at this point, or the Hydro Commission, to put the lines in for power to go to those farms. So they'll just after letters of support from council, so that'll need to come to the council when we get more information, because the information that they're getting together at this point in time, what it's going to cost and where it's likely to go and whatever, will come first, and then we'll have a copy of that submission, and that'll come to the future council to hopefully for a letter of support. But that'll be up to you.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Councillor, okay.
Mr Mayor, the Legat meeting that you had, was there any indication on the sector reform? Back us?
Only an update, but no different update that's been online. I don't think there was anything more, really, was there?
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's been no indication of where that's heading yet. Every single council's trying to find out, and there's just no indication. We expect the draft options at the end of March.
Yeah, the draft option was supposed to be December, and they put it back 3 months.
We've just been the general meeting. Thought that would have been fairly important.
Well, it is important, but until we can get more information, there's not much more to add really, other than what we've been told, which is probably a bit disappointing. I agree. Nothing further? Right. Along. We are down to 8 agenda item, which is nil. We come down to find the page. Completely wasn't me. The council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public question statements, or questions and statements. People wishing to speak may ask up to 2 questions. If anyone has more than 2 questions, we will accommodate them if time allows us. Please come to the front, state your name if there are any questions. Are there any questions from the public?
Most of you know me, my name's Trevor Spinks. How do I make this a question? I know you've had a few accolades tonight, Mr Mayor, but I was just wondering if you're aware that as people move around the community, there is a high level of appreciation for the job that you've done over all these years, particularly for the fact that you've had to put up with people like me in past life. So I think the community don't know how to thank you, but they'd like to thank you for what you've done. Secondly, on a small matter, I was just wondering if council would have access to a bucket of soapy water and a mop to clean that interpretive sign as we come across the sisters. Because we never seem to come across it without we comment that it's all dirty and grimy, and I'm sure it's only a small job. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure Vanessa will take that on.
Yep.
On board. Thank you. Any further questions without notice?
Hello, my name's Melissa Wells. Firstly, I'd like to thank the new General Manager, Vanessa, for saying my statement at the Councillors Forum last week. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, so I'd like to thank you and welcome you also to the community officially.
Thank you.
And my question is in regards to a comment that was made at that forum when I was listening on the YouTube version. Councillor Poposky stated that the money that will be given to the community through the community fund to do with the Robbins Island wind farm, is he aware, and is the community aware, that that is to be spread through 3 municipalities? It's not actually all for our municipality, and when they actually put each wind turbine into process, like to work, we won't actually get that full monetary amount that he stated, that it won't all go online at the same time. So there could be a period of several years where we won't be getting that initial $750,000 amount that was stated. I think it was very like the community will be confused by that, because there's the Circular Head, Wynyard, Waratah and the Burnie Council that has to share in them funds, them community funds, so it will make a huge difference splitting it 3 ways as to 1 way. And maybe could there be some clarification on that for the community members who did watch that meeting?
Yeah, that was mentioned by UPC, that that's the way it was going to go. We strongly argued against that, or because most of the things are going to be in Circular Head. But the project's got to get up yet first before anything will happen, obviously, and so that's got to be decided by council. But if that happens, we'll be trying to get as much funding as we can for it, but we don't know yet how much will come to our district.
Yeah, so I think that being an elected member of the council, the information that's put out should be true and correct, and not be to the point that it can confuse members of the community, because I know the decision hasn't been made, but if members of the community are thinking, oh, we're getting this great big pot of money, when we're not actually getting that whole pot of money, we're only getting 1/3 of it, I just find that a little bit misleading.
Okay?
Yep.
Take point taken.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And further?
Good evening, I'm Colleen Murford. I have 2 questions. One's regarding the speed limit recommendation for West Montague. It's been made at 80 kilometres and not 70 as in Montague. We have more driveways and much more dangerous entrances, and 70 kilometres would give residents a greater chance of not being wiped out by 30% of vehicles using the road travelling above 120 to 160 kilometres. So I just wondered why they were making that 80 kilometre recommendation instead of 70.
Well, we've got a report tonight, so yeah.
It's on the agenda, okay. And why has the Robbins Island road sign been changed?
I couldn't tell you that. I didn't know that it was changed.
Yeah,
We'd have
it's
to
now
take that
Robin
on.
Island, R-O-B-I-N Island Road.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
It's obviously a mistake.
Okay. Okay, there's
Thank
no
you.
reason for it to be changed.
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay, thank
No.
you.
We must have got a new sign and it wasn't spelt right.
Kim Anderson. Dr Alistair Hobday, a senior research scientist with the CSIRO, published research measuring response distance at which motorists need to detect to different animals while driving at night in order to avoid running them over. Hobday discovered that the Tasmanian devil, being mostly black, are the hardest of all species to see between dusk and dawn. Combining these findings and reaction times and braking distances, Hobday determined that drivers can travel no faster than 54 kilometres with their lights on high beam or 38 kilometres on low beam if they want to give themselves enough reaction time to avoid hitting a devil on the road. My question is, why are the council making recommendations of 80 kilometres which contradicts this research by Dr Alistair Hobday, because the council should be aiming for the survival of this iconic endangered species in this area?
The reason that it was as it is that was a recommendation from a committee that we've got, which includes Cradle Coast NRM, state government and ourselves, and that committee had talked about being, that's what they've suggested it should be, and so we went along with that recommendation at this point in time, but it is only a recommendation, and but that's going to be discussed tonight. So.
My second question is, on the 21st of July council meeting, the Scenic Quality Assessment and Management Report was presented. Stated in discussions, landowners felt they hadn't been heard, so it was decided to give more consultation. The Mayor also stated that locals should be able to come and talk to councils. My question, will the council go to the locals in this area on speed limits for Wool North and West Montague Road?
Well, we are not responsible for what the speed limit is. That's the state growth. All we can do is actually respond to them.
But can the locals in that area be consulted like the landowners are with the scenic protection?
Well, we haven't done that in the past, but I'm number of people in areas where they want speed limits altered. They do come to talk to councils, and anybody can come and talk to us about that, but we haven't generally gone out into the public for that, because if we did it, we'd need to do it not just for the people at Wallnorth.
But this is for an iconic EPBC listed species. Wouldn't that make a difference?
Well, that committee, we could actually talk to that committee about that.
And we have tried to get a meeting with the GM, the three of us, but we didn't get one.
Yeah, well, I couldn't comment about that, but
Right, thank you.
thank you. Any further? Yep, thanks, Alice.
I actually have a question for Mr. Oldacre. From the last meeting, I just wanted a little bit of clarity around a statement he made at the last meeting. I think I've written it down from the live stream. The devil thing down there, irrespective of the road, I am nervous about the numbers that they have put out that says was killed in that short period of time. Some of these people, and they are capable of doing it, they don't want the truth to get in the way of a good story. And I just would like to know what that meant, as I am one of those people.
Councillor Ollie, do you want to respond now, or do you want to take it on notice?
I'll take it on notice, given that I wasn't referred to as a councillor, only as Mr. That was a bit too.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. No further questions? Yep.
Yes, Simon Dobson. I'm one of the people who are picking up a lot of those squash devils. I would like to know how, on a level of priority, where the council feels the saving of the devils should be. As a major priority, a minor priority?
It's a major priority.
For the record, this year there has been substantially less. The same number of wallabies I seem to be picking up off the road, very few devils. I feel we are probably on the last season or two. We can't talk about this for a lot longer. I would like to see the priority a bit higher for our devils. Thank you.
Well, we did talk to the Minister. The Minister did come up and talk to us 3 or 4 months ago, and the Minister also believes it's important. That's why there's not very many committees of council, or the council's involved in it, that does have a government person. It's not the Minister himself, it is a government, one of these minders, is attending the meeting from now on. So I think you can see from that it is seen, we are serious about it. We're not just doing it because we have to.
I hope so.
Anything further? 8-3-0, 9-0 and 9.2-0. Planning and authority items, we don't have any tonight. We're now coming along to 11.1, which is the Wallnorth Road, West Montague speed limit. And through to James. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is the item to consider Council's position on the proposed lowering of speed limit through West Montague Road and Wallnorth Road. Little bit of a background on this one. Council's been involved as a stakeholder in Tasmanian Devil Roadkill Working Group. There are a few outcomes from that working group, one of which was for Council to assess the suitability of the speed limit on West Montague Road and Wallnorth Road, which we have done in conjunction with Cradle Coast Authority and NRM. So I guess it's probably important to note at this stage that Council is unable to approve a change to the regulatory speed limit on roads, council roads or any other roads. That has to be done by the Transport Commission themselves. So that Council is only able to make recommendations to change the speed limit. Currently the posted speed limit through the whole stretch of West Montague and Warnorth is the default speed limit of 100 kilometres per hour. Council's carried out an engineering assessment and finds the geometry and suitability of the road generally suitable for 100 kilometres per hour from a traffic safety point of view alone, except for a small portion through the West Montague township of around 2 kilometres, which suits a 80 kilometre per hour speed limit, primarily for the density of driveways and the winding geometry. In addition to Council's engineering assessment, NRE and Credit Coastal Authority provided us with a wildlife-based assessment. Based on that assessment, the recommendation was to lower the speed limit to 80 kilometres per hour, and during the higher risk times, which is obviously dusk till dawn, and as a result, the recommendation is to lower the speed limit through West Montague and Warnorth Road to 80 kilometres per hour, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m, except for the section through West Montague, which would be recommended that's lowered to 80 all day. I present that for Council's consideration.
We did have
We would like to recommend that a third recommendation is added to that list, which is to ensure that stakeholders are consulted going forward.
Okay, somebody prepared to move that?
Yeah, happy to move that.
Thank you. And somebody... Thank you. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I would like to speak to it. Firstly, acknowledging that the topic itself has a lot of stakeholders involved, and so it is a complex topic, and acknowledging that the Director of Engineering and Projects can report on the traffic, and so we are a little bit limited around the wildlife aspect of it, but I think that we are actually putting an application to the Transport Commissioner to change it. We can't do that ourselves. And if we then can consult with those stakeholder groups, they should be able to help determine whether that goes forward to the Transport Commissioner. This is an aspect of a solution, it's not the solution in itself. And I think that that input from those stakeholders will be critical to the result that we... I think some of those stakeholders are fairly critical.
I agree, Councillor Edmund. It is important to keep the stakeholders informed and try and get their input into this whole project. What I want to make sure of, that this doesn't get left on the shelf from this point on, because this is only one little aspect, like Councillor Edmund said. We need to continue to make sure that these devils are protected. We've done a couple of things now. We've done the wildlife mitigation on the sides. We've done this, but we need to just keep working on it. It's not just something that we can leave and just allow this to be the last of it. This needs to be just another process that allows the people to go forward and to see how we can end up. I think it's important to note some of the comments that were made about the lower speed limit. We've got to be careful in that, but at the same time, there's no problem in doing that later on if it looks like that's starting to work. Is there something else we can do to lower it further, or whatever we need to do? But I think we need to, this is a good stepping stone, but it's only a stepping stone. We need to keep that at the forefront of our minds around this table.
Councillor Rice-Harris.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I do concur with Councillor Etlin and Councillor, Deputy Mayor Berkery, in the fact that, and I'd just like to add to and make comment of the working group and the tireless hours that they put in, because they're on the ground, they understand what's happening on that road and what's best for the future use of that road. So with that, continue to reach out to them and engage not only with them but local people, and what we've seen in the gallery so far. And I thank Colleen, Kim, Alice and Simon for their questions tonight, and hopefully the incoming council can make it a major priority going forward. Thank you.
Anything further?
Yes, I'd rise to support the motion, and in doing so, at least that's a 20% reduction in the speed, which would help. But critical to that is getting the the police department to be there and monitor those speeds. And I think that's probably part of the problem, that's not been monitored enough. But when you look at the database that's been put forward in support of this, out of the 20-odd examples, there's only 3 occurred when there's been animals on the road, as far as accidents are concerned.
Any further speakers? No further speakers. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can we see the wording of number 3?
Oh, yeah, it's up there.
Because number 1 is saying to determine to make an application, whereas if there's a stipulation of point 3, which could change whether that stakeholder group has an influence on whether it goes forward or not.
I think you risk delaying it by doing that. Most of the stakeholders who, sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, most of the stakeholders are actually on the working group.
My understanding, there was a bit of information that's been missing from that consultation, and that consultation is important to this, whether we put that application forward. I mean, once it's gone through, it's more difficult to change a speed limit than to get that consultation before we put the application forward.
I think we could hastily get the other stakeholders that you're talking about together so that we can make that happen, because I don't think there's any, my understanding, the stakeholders that's talked to themselves, they haven't all spoken to me, but some have, and they're not against the reduction at all. They want to look at a couple of other measures as well, but I don't think that that's going to alter I don't think that's going to alter the motion, but I think it'll be prudent to speak to them, and we could certainly contact them pretty quickly.
That'd be great, if we ask them.
Thank you. All right, well, that's carried. So we'll go down to item 12, financial report.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, that the stakeholders are consulting going forward. Of course, we're going to consult with them because they're in the stakeholder group.
That's right.
So will the stakeholders have any influence on whether that goes forward as an application or not?
The resolution.
Yeah, we have made the resolution.
Without seeing the wording.
Oh, well, it was up there. Yeah.
It's up there.
No, it was up there. But I'm sure that our staff could actually talk to the stakeholders.
We will do that.
Before we send it in.
Yeah, we will do that.
I'll follow up on that. Thank you very much.
No, we will.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, I think your points well made.
Yeah, thank you.
Financial report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, councillors, before you we have the financial report for the period ended 30th of September 2022. We had no applications for the first homeowners grant, acknowledging 3 in total for this year so far. We have the closing funds on page 47 of the area management committees. In terms of the comprehensive income statement or profit and loss statement, currently have comprehensive result of net result of 7.3 million compared to budget of 1.9. We have total community equity with our assets and liabilities of $254 million. The bulk of that being infrastructure, property, plant and equipment at 206 million. We currently have at call funds of 9.1 million, which as interest rates start to move, we'll start moving them out into some different term deposits. We also have cash at the end of the period of 22.3 million. Our proportion of rates uncollected at the end of September was 22.32 compared to 22.3 at the same time last year. So basically the same collection regime as the year before. So people are paying generally in the same types of whether they're receiving a discount or paying by instalment. Sundry debtors, 381,000 compared to 740 same time last year. And as I said before, that the timing of grant grant applications and invoices for that is probably the bigger determinant of what that balance is at the end of the month. And that's about it, Mr Mayor. I'll present the report for Council's consideration.
Thank you. Prepared to move the recommendation?
Second.
Councillor Blizzard, Councillor Popovski. Any debate or questions?
Yes, I've got a question, Mr Mayor. With the grants, in our last budget, the Upper Scottsdown Road was agreed to be sealed. When do we see that grant money coming through for those roads to be sealed? Have you got any idea?
They had to be accepted as to be done under that program for a start, was it not?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, those projects were funded under the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program.
Have they been
So
accepted?
they have been accepted as approved projects, so we can commence those during this financial year.
So the money's already come through for that? No? I couldn't see it there. I'm just wondering where it was. It's not in the Jam's bottom drawer somewhere, right?
I doubt it.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd say no at the moment. On page 48, the profit and loss statement, we have grants there, capital income, and it's 803,241, which is actually our amount for roads recovery. So, and it's not in that. So it's been approved, but we haven't received it.
Through you, Mr Mayor, what was the amount that was coming through for that, please? If you can't remember, it doesn't matter, but it's nice to know when I go.
700,000?
I'll take that on notice and find out what the total amount was, I think.
Okay.
No further questions? Questions? Mover and seconder? No. Somebody prepared to move the...
Yeah, no, I did that.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Okay.
you did that.
Oh, I did, yep. That's what I asked. Yep. So I've done that. I'll put the recommendation in. All those in favour?
Aye. Aye.
Against, carried. Come down now to the senior management report.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to hand over to Tracy to talk about the child safe standards and that new process. Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, so as a result of the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse, there are a range of recommendations that came from that, and as part of the legislation going before Parliament, there is a section that refers directly to local government. And what it asks is that every council has a child safety officer. So that will come into effect in 2024. So I'm representing this council and Waratah Wynyard as the child safety officer at this point in time. The requirements of that role are still a little bit unclear, and so I've been attending some meetings to get some further guidance on that. But until the legislation's adopted and then the guidelines adopted, we won't know exactly what there is. There is a bit of a description in there around things like providing information, providing education, supporting facilities that council operates, but also smaller groups within the community to meet their requirements around keeping children safe. There has already been some questions about the term child safety officer, because that's a term that is referred to within child protection, and so people will hear that and think that this certainly isn't about having a child protection, child safety officer at every council. It's really about having someone who can point people in the right direction to get resources and to answer questions and, I guess, be an advocate within the local community. I'll keep council informed about how that goes. Like I said, there'll be no further information until next year, and when that information comes out, which will be a draft roles and responsibilities around that position, that's when I'll be able to present to council on what that covers. It isn't just council, it's also sport and recreation, and there's other agencies that are, everyone really will have a role who can
Through you, Mr Mayor. Tracy, has there been any suggestion that councillors or people on council and around the council area working with children, has there been suggestions on police check for that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I know that question's been raised a number of times. However, that wasn't discussed as part of this, and my understanding, and I'd need to get some more information on it, is that perhaps one of the stumbling blocks for that is around the definition of an employee. So whether or not councillors, because councillors aren't classed as employees or volunteers, so perhaps, and again this is, I'm making an assumption here, there's a bit of a misstep in terms of the legislation around working with vulnerable people, that refers to a specific group of people, class of people, whereas councillors don't fall into that bracket. So not at this stage and not as part of this process to date.
The reason I asked the question is that when I was working at the high school and mentoring children, I had to have a police check.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Blizzard, at Rotary, did we have to have police checks there?
Through you, Mr Mayor, every person in Rotary is involved in any youth project has to have a one person, plus a police check.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a question. I'm assuming that we won't get any resources. Correct. So we just have to come up with a person. I've been on the gymnastics club where, as a club, there was no way we were able to bring a volunteer who was already stretched to the level of requirements for a child safety officer to be on our committee. And I can see why that would be, for a volunteer committee, great to resource that. If we're going to have someone, is it possible that this is an example where we ask for resource sharing across more than two councils? That we do look at more partnerships on something like that we can access, because someone has to pay for these types of requirements.
So, through you, Mr Mayor, so in the recommendations it talks about that it should be someone within your existing staffing complement, so it should, which is great because I've been knitting all day, so I'm glad I've got something to do. Sorry, yeah, frivolous.
Won't minute that.
So it needs to be someone from within the staffing complement. There have certainly been questions asked as we've been going through the consultation around where we have shared staff across services, because it may be putting a whole range of things in place, and you may have someone that can do that. There will be what will come out will be a range of resources that people can access, but as we know, we can develop all the resources in the world, but it is making the connection between the resource and people, and so that'll be something that will be worked on. But certainly the notion put forward was that can we have a child safety officer that operates across more than one council?
Thank you.
Okay.
The only other thing I'd really like to highlight there, Mr Mayor, is that I'd like to commend the community development team on the fantastic work they did on the Charts Festival.
Yeah, just a question on that today or yesterday, they slipped by. I've done a survey on the most successful charts we've had today, but there wasn't a submit button. I was wondering if the people can tell me, because it goes through without a submit button.
We'll take
I'll take that on notice.
Take it on notice.
Yes.
It must go through. Yeah. I didn't see a submit button.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
I want to make sure.
I think there should be a submit button. and
We'll look into it.
we'll look.
You would miss me good comments.
We'll troubleshoot that.
Now, Deputy Mayor.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank the community team on behalf of us for all the work they did in regard to the charts. It was fantastic. I went to most of the things around the town and I'd have to say it was absolutely well run, every part of it. So well done, guys. And a special thank you to the CHIL members for they've done a fantastic job throughout. They were there cleaning up, packing up, setting up, all these different functions, and they were there helping. So it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Probably going to get in strife if they didn't go.
For the big stick.
No. Sorry, Jody. Any questions on any parts of the GM's report, including the letters? Nothing? Somebody prepared to move the recommendation?
Yes.
Thanks, Councillor Atlan.
Second
Second.
that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Ives Harris.
I can't make a quick note. No. Oh, just a quick note on the while back. Ridge, sorry I missed
Yes,
that,
no,
was
okay.
in the fact that for the future councillors that sit around this table, if that continues to have a positive engagement with the Premier, that's your opportunity to seal the Western Explorer. Thank you.
Last try.
Yes, if you can't get it then, you won't get it.
Probably right too, actually. All right, no further comments. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against carried. We'll now go on to 13, which is the minutes of committees. The rec centre, we've got 5, and we've got 4 others.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Oldacre and Deputy Mayor. Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against carried. We'll now go through them. Stanley Town Hall meeting on the 13th of September. Questions on those at all?
Yes, Mr Mayor, it was brought up to this table some time ago that AGMs of council-controlled committees will ask for their president report and treasurer's report. I noticed that it wasn't submitted.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll probably need to follow that through. Now, the motion still acknowledges the nominations. We normally make sure that's added when we move these motions. Now we do them all together. I was just thought I'd better query. When we put the minutes together, when an annual meeting comes along, we move it, acknowledging the nominations that are on these committees.
Okay.
Which is probably new for yourself,
Yes.
so you wouldn't
That's all right, Mr Mayor, we can
So
do
we probably
that.
just need to be
We
aware
will
of those.
extract
when
those
we do-
names and put them in the minutes. Yeah.
Thank you. Nothing further on Stanley Town Hall? We'll go on to the Northern Area Management Committee. Any questions on those at all, or comments?
Once again, I'll refer you to the President's report and Treasurer's report.
Thank you. That's for the annual meetings though, isn't it?
Yeah, annual meetings only.
Yeah, but this is not an annual meeting.
Oh, sorry,
The
the next
Northern
one is.
area.
Yeah, I'm a month too early.
Oh, no, you're not in front of me. We'll go on to 13.3, Circle Head Recreation Committee, and there's a number of those. There's 5 of those. Is there any questions on any of them? Or comments? If not, I'll go down to 13.4, the open minutes advisory committee. Any comments on any of those or questions? If not, we'll go down to 13.5, Circular Youth Leaders meeting on the 3rd of October. See that they're doing some course training, which is fantastic. I'm really happy with that. Anything further? We come down to the second lot of public questions. Are there any questions from the public?
Kim Anderson again. Can the council please clarify what went on with the Devil, when you voted on the Devil's speed limit? We're confused, us four.
Well, what it basically said that it was going to go from in West Montague, it was going to be reduced to 80 all the time.
We're going to ask for it.
No,
we're going to ask for it.
We're talking about the third option. The
The third.
stakeholders.
The stakeholders is going to be contacted. The stakeholders was yourselves and some other people that spoke to us. And so we'll contact NR in Cradle Coast to contact you and have a chat. We'll probably need to get together in the next week or so just to confirm that supportive of those.
If we're not, Darryl, what goes on
Oh,
there?
well, that's up to the committee. I mean, there's a committee there and it'll be...
I'm part of that committee.
And that'll be up to that committee. As long as that committee still continues with a recommendation, which we had tonight, which come from them, well, that's what will go to state government for approval.
Righto. So it could change. We could change it.
Oh, it could. Yeah, probably unlikely, but it could.
Thank you.
Anything further? Nothing else? I now need a motion that matters. No, before I do that, I'm going to say a few words actually. I want to thank councillors and staff for all the help they've given me over the last 15 years as mayor and my time at council. I've made a lot of good friends. We've had a lot of good debates. Fortunately, I don't win all the debates, which is probably different than what popular views say. But I think this council, and I've said it before, and I said it this afternoon with our staff, that our council is held in high regard in our community. During the last 4 years, I found it probably the most difficult we've had for some time, through COVID, through meetings online, which was pretty ordinary, and I found difficult to manage. But we got through it, even though it was difficult. We had some difficult times, and I'm pretty happy that over the last, especially 6 to 8 months, we've regained what we lost during that time, and I think we're in a great space for new council to come and take on or take over next month. So, but it's not me that does that. It's not Vanessa or anybody else. It's the whole council and our staff that actually makes that happen. And so, over my terms as councillor and as mayor, we've seen some tremendous things happen. I've reflected on that over the last little while, and when you first think about it, you think, oh, nothing much has changed. But when actually look what has changed, it is a far different place than what it was in 1980 when I first got council, and it to the better, because it's much better, and I think it's much more livable place than what it used to be. And we've got some good people in our community and some good business in our community that, and it's probably pleasant in some ways, but not in others. But one of our biggest issues now is housing and getting enough people to do the jobs available. I'll say it's pleasant and not pleasant, but it's pleasant in that it's a much better problem than seeing a whole heap of empty buildings and having a employment of 7 or 8 or 10%, as has happened in some areas over a few years. What we've got is much better than that. And so I want to thank all our councillors, as I said, not only the ones that's here now, but has been with us in the last few years that I've been involved in. I certainly will miss the people. Not going to miss meetings much. I don't think, but certainly we'll miss people, and I wish you all the best in the future. And for other councillors finishing up, I want to wish you the best. I expect that the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Edlund will be back sometime. I hope that they are, because I've got a lot to offer. And Councillor Ives Harris as well, because you're young enough. I don't think Councillor Woody and myself will see our names on the ballot papers again.
Never say never.
Well, never say never, but I would go horribly close to it. But the others that are younger, I mean, they've got other issues that they're dealing with at this point in time, but I wish them well, and I hope to see their names come up again and go further. And for the four that's putting up again, I wish you all the best, and I hope life goes well for you in the future. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to, I won't be at the council meetings, but I will keep in contact to see what's going on and make sure you're doing the right thing. In my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. I know I'm out of order, but I'm going to go anyway. A few have mentioned today, and I'd like to add my accolades and thanks for you and your service for the period of time. And I'll also add my accolades and thanks to Bev, and please pass it on, because she shared you, probably sent you out, but anyway, she shared you for a long period of time. So it's as much Bev as it is yourself. So please pass that on. I also thank the group here for the last it's only been 4 years for me for that term. It's been ups and downs and funs and games and good, but it's been terrific to get to. I've known some before we started, I know everyone now, so it's been really good. Wish everyone with their hands up for council next time round and jobs the best. And we look forward to moving our community forward in due course. So well done, Darryl. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, I need a motion now. Matters listed considered in opposed. Thanks, Councillor Oldacre. Councillor Edlund. Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Closure of meeting to resolve confidential matters.
So moved.
Thanks, Councillor Ives Harris and Deputy Mayor. Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, people.